Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to your very own Byju's 6th, 7th and 8th grade channel. I'm your teacher Aishwarya and I welcome you to today's class where we are going to be kickstarting the chapter Reproduction in Animals, and in this particular video we will be covering the topics Introduction to Reproduction. So what exactly is this process? How many types or modes of reproduction are there? And in that we are going to be covering asexual reproduction in detail, and we will be looking at the different types of asexual reproduction. So as you can see, these are the things that we will be covering in our class today. So I hope all of you are excited, and very quickly students, please do let me know if my audio, my video and my screen and whatever I'm writing on the screen is visible to all of you. If it is, give me a quick thumbs up to let me know that we are good to go. Good evening, Anushka, Lakshya, Purvi, Anita, Ansh, Janvi, Prakriti, Japneet. Yes, good evening. Yes, good evening, all of you. Okay, now of course many of you here have been very regular to class. Many of you are probably attending my class for the first time. Now those of you who are attending my class for the first time, I would like to tell all of you that I am recovering from a severe throat infection. So please don't mind my voice. It may sound like there is some audio problem, but there's not really any audio problem. It's just how my voice sounds like for today. But hopefully it is getting better and better. So if you've been following my classes very regularly, you would realize that my voice has gotten much better from maybe the first time I took the class. So I'm sure that very soon I'll be back to my old self. But in the meanwhile, please don't mind how my voice sounds, right? So good evening, everybody. Good evening. Now, second thing that I would like to address, especially for the live audience, is that of late on the YouTube platform, we have experienced some lag or some buffering. Now, that has happened because of a platform issue, and we are looking into it. We have reached out to YouTube as well, and we are sorting it out. So I know that for the live audience especially, many of you might have some buffering issue. Please don't mind, it will be okay, right? It's going to be okay. Okay? Awesome. Now, of course, very quickly, when you come to my class, one thing that I would always request you to have is that have your notebooks and your textbooks ready, right? So make it a point, you have your notebook, your textbooks open with you, have your stationery as well, pencil, pen, right? Have that ready. Now, along with that, have your water bottle, because drinking water, hydrating now is very important. See, now is the winter season. So when this class is happening, of course, it's happening sometime around in November. Winter season, flu season. Many of you, if you don't take care because of the flu season, I don't want you all to fall sick, which is why make it a point that all of you are drinking water regularly. Eat right, don't eat unhealthy food. Make sure you eat well, sleep well, and wash your hands regularly. Yes, very, very important. Last but not the least, have a quiet place to focus, right? Sit in a quiet place. See, today's class is not going to be a very long class because today we will be covering some important concepts, and along with that, we will also be solving some questions. Yes, so we will be doing these two things together. But in the meanwhile, all of this, like I said, we're only going to do a little bit of introduction. So today's class will be for only about 30 minutes. Max to max 40 minutes. I will not take more than that. But when you are sitting 30-40 minutes with me, pay attention in class, right? Make it a point that all of you pay attention. Next, there is no Menti quiz. I am very, very sorry if any of you are disappointed in the live audience especially. We do not have any Menti quiz for today, so please don't keep asking me. Last but not the least, yes, Purvi, thank you, and many of you, right? As especially today more than ever, if you tell me, ma'am, you are ignoring me, ma'am, you don't like me because you are not taking my name, or ma'am, you know, you are very mean because you didn't take my name or address my doubts. Of course, I don't do that intentionally. I don't come prepared saying that today I will ignore XYZ person. But today, of course, make it a point that you don't say that. I will be taking doubt boards. See, when I am teaching, I don't look at the chat. I teach looking for everybody. But when I take doubts in the live class, I will have an exclusive doubt board where I will take it. So listen to me when I teach, write your doubts down, and when I do the doubt board, you can ask me then, right? So are you all clear? Yes? Are you all clear? Okay, Poshali, but we also have a Purvi in class. That's why. Don't worry, we just got started, not a problem. Influenza virus, right? It's called flu is influenza. That is, there is normally a type of flu that is there. It's caused by virus, and many of us have been down with viral diseases. Okay? Now, for all of you who are here with my live audience, very important thing, it's a quick update. As you know, Diwali is around the corner, and how can we not indulge in the festive season? How can we celebrate without our students, right? We have to celebrate with our students, which is why tomorrow we are coming live, all your teachers, to celebrate this festive season or to kickstart the festive season with all of you. So this is a quick reminder to indulge this festive season with us Byju's, where all your teachers are going to be there. So this is something that you should not miss tomorrow. That's why I have come with a quick reminder. All of us are here, right? Okay, and tomorrow you have a lot of things that will be there for you. So don't forget to hit the notification button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel also. You have a lot of exciting things coming your way. Awesome. So let's get started, all right? Now, when we look at the news, right, we know that of late, especially in 2023, there was a news article which said that the world population, right, there was a news article which said that the world population has reached dash. Can any of you tell me the world population has reached what number? Yes? World population has reached a new milestone, right? We have reached a new milestone, and approximately, very good Pankaj, Ashita, Dari, Fatima, Daria Fatima, very good. We have not reached so many Ansh, but rather we have reached approximately 8 billion, right? We have approximately reached 8 billion people. And here, we are not talking about 8 billion organisms. See, understand that I did not say 8 billion organisms, but the human population has touched 8 billion. That means humans alone are 8 billion in number. And a fun fact for all of you, as per the United Nations, apparently all over the world, every minute, about 250 babies have been born, as a result of which the population or the number of people in the world has started to increase. Now you think about it. We all have only one planet, and that's our planet Earth. And this planet Earth was not made for human beings alone. Planet Earth was made for our plants, our animals, our tiny microorganisms, right? So we see that this whole planet is made for all of us. But now the number of organisms, right? The number of organisms in itself is so much. So today, right? Today we will understand how this is increasing. And along with that, I will also answer a question which many of you have. How is it that the world population came up to such a big number, right? How is it that the world population came to such a big number? Yes, I am sure that you all have this number, right? Okay. See, this is a fun fact, and Ansh, it's written approximately. It is not exactly. Roughly, they've taken an average. Yes? Okay. Now, what do you think? How is it that organisms, right? Or how is it that the population or the number of organisms have come to this number? Very good. It has happened with the help of a process called as reproduction. So reproduction is a process by which living organisms, they give young ones or they give rise to new individuals, but of the same kind. so that they can grow in number or grow their species. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, it is a process by which a living organism, let's assume living organism X, right, gives rise to a new individual who was never there in this planet before, but now has been brought to life. So, we will call this as baby X, right? So, it has given rise to a new individual which we will call as baby X. But now it is not that it has given rise to some random organism, not like there was a cow and a cow gave rise to a baby lion, right? It is not that a cow gave rise to a baby lion, but rather if there was a cow would have given rise to maybe, let's say, a baby calf, right? Or similarly, if there was a lioness, the lioness would have given rise to cubs. So here what is our focus? It means that of the same kind. So that what? So that we see that it will grow in its number, right? So this is what we understand as reproduction. Now in the meanwhile, yes, many of you, yes Poshali, you gave me the answer first, but many of you here, right, have this doubt that ma'am, you know how exactly, right? How exactly is the number? Why is it that the human population is so much in number? The reason being that of late, right, when we bring a new organism into the world, or maybe a new baby into the world, we see that over a period of time, facilities like healthcare, doctors, right, nurses, then of course knowledge in this field of healthcare has increased. Yes or no? Do you all agree? Right? Do you all agree with me that of late our healthcare facilities have become has become very good, as a result of which, if at all, right, any complication is there or if any issues are there, we are able to tackle it. That is why, because of better facilities that have improved over a period of time, the population has grown bigger and bigger. Yes? Okay. Now, we know that reproduction is essential, and I will answer some of the questions that you are asking me. Don't worry. Yes, don't worry. Now, we know that this is something that living organisms do. That means that the animals, the plants, the microbes, right? If an organism is living, we see that those living organisms will have the ability to reproduce. Now, there are of course some exceptions, edge cases, some differences from the normal way of it, but broadly we can say that living organisms do have the ability to reproduce, right? Now, why should living organisms reproduce? Why should a young one, or why should an individual, let's say, why should this duck make ducklings? This duck, it's not that, understand. Now, there is always a misconception. Now, this duck, it's not that this duck has to reproduce, because if the duck doesn't make baby ducks, then the duck will die. No, an organism can survive without reproducing. A duck sorry about that. A duck can go without reproducing and it will not die. Then why should an organism reproduce, right? Why should an organism reproduce? Yes or no? Ma'am, can we say all plants can do reproduction? Plants can do reproduction. Method of reproduction is different. Okay. Yes, very good. Ma'am, to ensure continuity, ma'am, you should not do that. What should I not do that? Cough. Okay, very good. To increase its population, okay. To ensure continuity. Attimane, can you tell me what your name is? I'm going to answer your question only now. Okay, very good. Amrit, Akka, Anushka, pay attention in class. To continue its race. Okay, very good, Akash. Pankaj, Rakesh, Aradhya. I'm coming to the doubt board, don't worry. Okay. Praveen. Cool. Fine. Many of you have given me the answer, right? Now, why should an organism reproduce? First and foremost, we see that organisms reproduce so that they can make more of themselves, right? They can make more copies of themselves, or they can make more of themselves. And this ensures the continuation of species, which means that every living organism, right? Let's take a human being, right? Let's take the example of a human being. Now, when we take the example of a human being, we know that every human, let's assume human being X. This human being X is not going to live forever, right? There is a period from birth to death, right? There will, maybe he's born and he lives up to say 95 years of age, but after that he's not able to survive, because living organisms, or in this case, what do we observe? We see that they are not, right? Rather, every living organism has a fixed time. There is a fixed period between birth to death, right? So this fixed period between birth to death is what we call as the lifespan of a living organism. Now, what is a lifespan? It is the period of birth to death of a living organism, which means that after a period of time, this person X will no longer survive. Now, imagine if in the world, right, in our world Earth, there were just 5 people, right? There were only 5 human beings, no other organism, just 5 humans. Now imagine that these 5 humans continue to live their life, but all of them did not reproduce. They did not make young ones. Then, let's say after hundreds of years, right? Fast forward hundreds of years later, will I find human beings on this planet? Yes. Let's assume after 100 years, after they were born, 100 or let's say 200 years, right? After 200 years, will I find human beings? No, we won't find. Because the generation, they did not make a young one of their own kind. So there is nobody to continue the generation or continue the species, which is why for every living organism, they reproduce so that they can make more of themselves. Now, there are 2 questions which I found interesting. So first and foremost, is reproduction, right? Is reproduction essential for survival of the organism, right? Survival of the organism, which means that if there is a living organism and it does not reproduce, then it will die. Yes or no? Is this the case that if reproduction does not happen, that living organism will die? Yes. Okay, in the sense, okay, I'll give you a better example because I know how you are thinking now. For example, if we don't breathe, right? If we don't breathe, what will happen to us? Immediately, that organism cannot survive because body will stop functioning because there is no energy. But similarly, in that case, imagine an organism has become an adult and this adult decides not to reproduce. Then and there will that organism die. Not eventually we will die and all that. I'm talking about, okay, let me rephrase the question, right? If, let's assume there is a fish, right? There is a fish. And if the fish does not breathe, what will happen? Imagine I take this fish and I put it outside the water. Fish cannot survive, no, because it can only take up oxygen from the, water. If you put it on land, it will not survive. Yes? So in this case, it will not survive. But at the same time, if the fish is in water, but if this fish decides that I will not reproduce, will it immediately die? That is my question. Will this fish immediately die? Yes or no? No, right? The fish will not immediately die. The reason being that reproduction is not essential. I'll not say it's not essential for survival, but reproduction is essential for the survival of the species, of the population. But if one organism out of that population decides not to reproduce, nothing much will happen to itself. Which is why, although we say that reproduction is an essential life process, it is not that if that process does not happen, the organism will not survive. So that is what we mean by this. So are you all clear? Yes? So why do organisms reproduce, right? Why do organisms reproduce? This is the question. Because they make more copies of themselves in order to continue their species so that they don't go extinct. Now this question is a 2-mark question which you will get in your examination. So are we all clear? Yes? Are we all clear? Yes or no? Very good, Beauty Roy. Very, very good. Super proud. Okay. Ansh, I would suggest that the question that I asked you or the question you are asking me is much better when I do the next part. We are good. No. Yes. Many of you. Okay, I'll do a quick recap. So shall I quickly recap? Okay, I'm going to quickly recap what we learned just now, right? We saw that reproduction that is there is a process by which living organisms, right? They make young ones of their own kind. So what do I mean by that? So let's assume that there is a plant, right? Let's assume there's a plant, and if this plant has to become into a new plant, what will happen? Then we know that it will produce a seed, right? So we see that we will sow this seed will grow and germinate, and this is what will become into a new plant that is there, right? So we see that this right here, we see that there is a adult plant, but now we also see that there is a baby plant also, right? And this baby plant is of the same kind. Now, why do organisms reproduce? Because you see, every living organism, let's take the plant, let's take us human beings, right? So in all cases, they all have a fixed lifespan. That means that they have a fixed period between birth to death, which is why in order to ensure continuity of species, right? That means that 100 years, 200 years, 500 years later also we should find the same organism. But how do we find that? With the help of reproduction. So that is what we mean by continuity of species, so that they do not go extinct. Okay, awesome. So shall we now move on? Yes? Shall we move on? Now are we clear? Thank you, Prakriti. Thank you so much. Now, quick reminder, my voice is still recovering. Please don't mind the huskiness, and please don't mind if I drink hot water in between my explanation. Okay? I am going as slow as possible for all of you. Anushka, I will take your doubt. Anushka, yours and Ansh's, I will take it in just a bit. Okay? Okay. Now, moving on. We have understood what is reproduction. But now we will understand how many types or how many modes of reproduction are there. How many modes of reproduction are there? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Or is it 4? How many modes? Can you tell me? Very good. And can you all quickly name the 2 modes that are there? Yes? Very good, all of you. Very, very good. We have 2 kinds where we have sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Now, one thing if we saw was that in reproduction, right, there was a adult, right? So we saw that there was an adult organism, and then we saw that there was a baby or a young one. So now we will use some technical terms, right? We will use some technical terms. Now this adult organism is what we will call as a parent, right? While the baby or the young one that gets produced is what we will call as an offspring. Are we all clear? Yes? A parent organism is the adult organism that gives rise to the infant, the young one or the baby, right? So here think of offspring as young one, okay? Good. Now what is the difference between asexual and sexual reproduction? It is basically with respect to the number of adults involved in the process, right? So in the case of asexual reproduction, we see that there is only one single adult organism or one single parent organism. While on the other hand, in the case of sexual reproduction, we see that there are two parents, right? So two parents are involved. Now, because only one parent is there in asexual, what happens is that this one parent, right? This one parent only will undergo certain changes within its body. So inside, lot of changes will happen and it will give rise to a offspring or it will give rise to the young one. So here we see that there are no special cells, no special processes involved. So in this case, we see that there is no involvement of gametes, or I'll simply say no involvement of specialized cells for reproduction, okay? While on the other hand, we see that the offsprings that are produced or the young ones that are produced, we see that the young ones are identical to the parent. Now think of it as taking a Xerox copy. How many of you have taken Xerox copy of your notes? Yes? Of your friends' notes? How many of you have taken? See, those of you who are here to get distracted, I would request you to leave, right? Ma'am, but of textbook. Okay. Ma'am, me. Yes. I've also taken Xerox copy, right? Now, what is interesting about a Xerox copy? When you take the Xerox copy, the copy is same as the original, right? Yes or no? It is same as the original. So in this case, what do we see? We see that in asexual reproduction, because the parent has only undergone a lot of changes, right? The offspring that is there will look exactly similar. Or you can say that it is identical to the parent, or you can say it's ditto. Exactly. It's the same copy. So these are 3 points you should know about asexual reproduction. But what about sexual reproduction in this case? Now the word sexual comes because there are two parents which are involved, or two sexes which are involved, or the term sexes is just another name for gender, right? So it's just another name for gender, hence the term sexual that comes in. Now here we see that there is a male and there is a female which is involved in the process. Now when you say that they are involved, right, we see that they produce some special cells in the body, right? So we see that they produce some special cells. Now these special cells, we say that their function or their job is to aid, or is, you know, when I say special cells, they're involved in reproduction. So I can call them as reproductive cells. Do you all agree? So they produce some special cells which are involved in reproduction, hence reproductive cells. Or another word for reproductive cells is what we will call as gametes. So what are gametes? Gametes are cells which are involved in reproduction. Now here we see that the male and the female will come together, or when I say the male and female are coming together, the cells are what come together, right? And they come together and they fuse. Now what do I mean by that? When they fuse, it's like taking two balls of clay, right? Imagine you have clay one which is blue color. Now this is a highly simplified explanation to help you understand fusion. and you have green color clay. You take this together and you combine it. What will happen? If you take it and combine it, what will happen? Yes, it will become one, right? Now it has fused or it has combined to become one. So that is what happens here. We see that there is fusion. Now I told you that this is just for understanding the concept of fusion. That is not what happens in this case, okay? So don't get confused. Next, we see that the offspring will not be identical, right? Now, we know that humans are an example of sexually reproducing organism. Now, if you look at any young one, they don't look exactly like their parents, but they do look similar to their parents, right? We have some resemblance to our parents, but we don't look an exact copy of our parents. So that's why we say that offsprings or young ones are slightly similar. Okay, now I will stop and take a doubt board here. Now, many of you were asking me, can humans reproduce asexually? Now, naturally, no. Naturally speaking, we cannot reproduce asexually. It is not possible. Okay. Ma'am, so does this mean that random amoeba, ma'am, how gametes fuse? See, we learn more when we do sexual reproduction in the next class, okay? Ma'am, so that the random... Ma'am, does this mean that the random amoeba is the same as the first amoeba to have ever existed? Good question. Now, as much as we say that in asexual reproduction it is identical, what we observe is after many generations, maybe say 25, 30 generations of amoeba later, we will see some slight differences. So you will learn that in your higher grades, especially in 10th standard, you will learn about the concept of slight changes that exist within the same organism. So no, the first amoeba is not same as the amoeba that you see. It has undergone some slight changes over a period of time. Ma'am, when is next class? Next week. Ma'am, is it necessary that in sexual reproduction, the offspring has some traits of the parent? Yes, because end May, how is that offspring getting formed in the first place? When the gametes from the male and the female, they combine. So obviously they are formed because of this fusion. So yes, they will have the traits, right? Ma'am, hydrozoan is a jellyfish which can't die and can relive his life. What about him? Anushka, I am hearing about the hydrozoan for the first time. How about I read a little bit about it and I come back to you? Yes. Ma'am, in sexual reproduction, do gametes fuse? Yes. Next, Ansh's question. See, how do they combine? What happens? We will learn about all of that in the next class. See, today is just an introduction. Ma'am, how many offspring can one parent produce in asexual reproduction? Selena, that depends upon the organism and the type of asexual reproduction. Okay? Where is Ansh's question? Because it was a good question that I really liked. Okay. Vegetative propagation? No, not today. I'll not be teaching that. What is sperm? Male gamete. How does IVF work? I will teach you. Okay. So, Ansh, you are asking me that in sexually reproducing organism, is it that always the male, right? Is it that the male is, the female is the one who's always reproducing? See, in the concept of male-female, right? Concept of male-female comes in sexually reproducing organisms or in higher order organisms, right? In more advanced bodies. So in that case, this concept of male-female comes into the picture. And normally, right? Normally what I would say is that normally in mammals, we see that, or in higher organisms, let's say from vertebrates like fishes and all of that onwards, we see that females have a very important role to play. But when you talk about, which we will learn in sexually reproducing organisms, in humans and everything, development of the young one takes place within the female body, right? I hope I have answered your question. Now I see that lot of questions are coming with respect to sexual reproduction. Don't worry, I'll be taking a detailed session for this. But today we need to know the difference between the two, right? So very quickly everybody take a screenshot. Take a screenshot and we will move on. This will come in Telegram. Don't worry. See, right now, let me tell you, I know some of you are asking me doubts, but here it's on a very scientific perspective that we are learning today, right? This is a very scientific perspective that we are learning. So let's keep that in mind and we will move on. Okay? Okay. Ma'am, what is the special cell for male and female? Male gamete is called as sperm. Female gamete is called as egg. Okay? Very good. Awesome. Okay. Ma'am, what is the meaning of replica? Replica means identical, copy. That is what we mean by this. Zygote is what is formed as a result of fusion of male and female gamete. Aradhya, I have answered your question. Yes? Okay. Moving on, let's look at asexual reproduction more. So today, our session, right, is focused on asexual reproduction, where we will cover fission, budding, regeneration. So this is as per CBSE, and these are the three things which are given in your textbook. So we will quickly wind this up so that we can move on to the next one, right? Okay, so first up, let's have a look at fission. Now, in fission, the best example that we can take is of amoeba. So here we have one amoeba. So of course, fission is a type of asexual reproduction, which means that one single parent, right, will undergo some changes and it will give rise to offsprings. So now we will understand how exactly does the amoeba give rise to new individuals. Now, look at this particular image. What do you observe? Yes? What do you observe in this? I want to see how many of you are able to observe this. We see that there is one parent, and how many offsprings are there? We see that there are two offsprings. Now, in amoeba, what happens is that this parent will undergo various changes within itself, and it will split into two, right? So any type wherein the parent is splitting and giving rise to offsprings, right? We call this as fission. And here what is happening? One parent is splitting and giving rise to exactly two offsprings, right? Or we can say two young ones, which is why in this case, what do we observe? We call this process as binary fission, right? So let's understand this in detail. So we saw, what is the overview? There is a parent. Parent is undergoing some process, right? Some changes are happening and we are getting the daughter cell. Now, if you see, right, in any organism, we know that there is some information. Yes, we know that every cell or every living organism has some information about them stored, right? It is stored inside the nucleus, because inside the nucleus, what do we see? We see that inside the nucleus, the genetic material is there. So there is a genetic material that has information about what all the organism has to do. So just like how we have a brain that controls what all we need to do and how it regulates at a cell level. So apart from it being at a big level, even at the cellular level, at every given cell, we see that there is some genetic material in it. So think of it as just like how we have brains, even at a cellular level, there is a control center, there is a brain which is operating. Just that it is not in the shape of our brain, right? Not in the shape of the brain, but rather we see that it is in the form of genetic material, which has all the information. Now, when this amoeba has to reproduce, it also has to pass on this information, right? This information has to go from parent. It has to go from parent to the offspring. Yes or no? It has to go. So this information has to also go from parent to offspring. Kind of like if a baby were to be born. This information that a human baby should have one nose, two eyes, two ears, two hands, two legs, right? That is information that needs to go from the parent to the offspring. And that information is there in the genetic material. So what will happen in amoeba's case? Amoeba will, when it undergoes changes within itself, it will make a copy of the genetic information. Whatever information is there in itself, it will make one copy so that the nuclear division can happen, where the nucleus will divide, where let's say this is one copy and this is one more copy, right? So this is genetic information ka one copy, this is one more genetic information ka copy. Okay, this information go here, this information go there to my other daughter. So there is same information. It is not that information is getting half and half. You imagine there is a textbook, okay, and I want the same information as you. Will you tear your textbook into half and give it to me? Will you do that? If I also need a textbook, will you tear your textbook and give it to me? Yes or no? No, right? You will not tear your textbook and give half. What will you do instead? You will tell, Aishwarya ma'am, if you want my textbook, you Xerox the note, you Xerox the textbook so that you also have the same thing as me, right? So we will make a copy. So that's exactly what is happening, right? Uske baad what will happen? Now not just genetic information, all the other things inside the cell also needs to be made for the new daughter or for the new offspring. So all of that will also get divided during cytoplasmic division, and end mein what will happen? We see that we get two daughter cells. Now very popular question, ma'am, why daughter cell? Why not son cell? Now this is a homework for all of you. You tell me, why do we commonly use the phrase daughter cell and not son cell? This is your homework question which I want you all to tell me and let me know in the comments of this video. Ma'am, array, don't say that. In this case, what is happening? The parent in itself is splitting into two, giving rise to two offsprings, which is why this is called as binary fission. Why? Because we see that two offsprings are produced. Similarly, in bacteria also we see that a very similar process is made. And that is why, right? That is why we say, because from the parent, the genetic material or the genetic information is getting copied and it is directly going to the offspring. Now you know why it is identical to the parent. Yes? Now you know why it is identical to the parent. Yes or no? Yes? Ma'am, is parent's death after reproduction in amoeba? See, what happens is that in the case of amoeba, the parent, right, the mature parent is undergoing changes giving rise to the offspring. So in a way, you can't say it is the parent's death, but rather the amoeba becomes immortal, right? It's actually never dying. It is just making more and more of itself, but it's never really dying, right? So that is the answer behind this. Are we clear? Array, metamorphosis and everything we will learn. Don't worry. Are we all clear? Do you want to take a quick screenshot? Have you all taken a screenshot? Ma'am, so parent amoeba is died. Parent amoeba is now your offspring. So in one way you can't say it's died, but it's become immortal. Okay? First amoeba, not exactly as it is. It has undergone some changes and it's still existing, right? We will do sessions on cloning if you want to know details of it, right? Awesome. Okay. Now, in some cases, we saw that in amoeba, bacteria, we saw that one parent is splitting and giving rise to two. But in some cases, like Plasmodium, the parent cell will give rise to many, right? So they will, from one single parent cell, the nucleus will make multiple copies, right? So they will make multiple copies, and of course we see that they will then give rise to multiple daughter cells. So this kind, right, this kind of division where from one parent we get many daughter cells, we call this as multiple fission in Plasmodium. So this right here is an example. Okay? Okay. So now we have binary fission as well as multiple fission. Now they can ask you a question. Differentiate between binary and multiple fission. So in this case, are we all clear? Yes or no? Are we all clear with this concept of the difference between binary fission and multiple fission? See, I've explained it to you in very simplified terms. I can easily tell you that this is the number and go ahead with it, but that is not the case, right? Ma'am, amoeba is single cell, then how it will have two nucleus? No, the nucleus will split into two and eventually from that one amoeba, it will become into two. Okay? That is a story for another day, Ansh, how the first organism came into the picture. Janvi, Bhagi, all of you guys who want to have parallel conversations, you can leave the class. Yes, Amrit, you can say that. It's undergone slight changes over many years, right? Okay. What does cyst formation mean? Cyst is basically a protective covering. So normally this multiple fission happens when the conditions are unfavorable, right? So it is not very ideal for reproduction right now, or it's not ideal for growth. So what it will do, it will form a cyst or a protective covering where they will be protected. Now once the conditions are ideal for the growth of a new organism, we see that they will rupture, or that cyst will rupture, releasing the multiple daughter cells. Okay. Lifespan of amoeba between 2 to 3 days, if I am right. I'm not sure, but I think 2 to 3 days. Ma'am, do reproduction happens only one time? No. When they reach a certain maturity, they will be reproducing, right? Ansh, I have explained cyst formation. Moving on. So now we've understood this. We will move on to the next one, which is going to be our next organism, that is Hydra. Now, this right here is how Hydra looks like. Now, can you tell me visually, right? How does the Hydra look like? Yes? What does the Hydra look like? What are the things you can see in the Hydra? Yes? What are all the things that you can see in the Hydra? Tell me its structure here. Ma'am, it looks like a tree with tentacles. It looks like a snake. Hydra looks like a snake. Okay, I'll explain it once again, don't worry. Ma'am, budding, bud is rising. Hydra, tentacles. Okay, see, Hydra comes under the family of jellyfishes, okay, which is why we see that they are very tiny organisms. They are not as big as some jellyfishes, but they are very tiny multicellular organisms. So we see that they are tiny multicellular organisms, and on top we see that they have these various tentacles that are there. Now along with this, we also see that Hydra is normally found fixed to the ground. So this is what I can say is a kind of looks like a coconut tree. No, this Hydra looks like a coconut tree. Now in the case of Hydra, we see that the process is slightly different. Now they also reproduce asexually, and this process of asexual reproduction in Hydra is what we call as budding, right? So what exactly happens? In amoeba, what did we see? In amoeba, we saw that this whole parent is only splitting and it is giving rise to 2 offsprings. But in Hydra, that is not the case, right? In Hydra, what do we observe? We see that there is a small outgrowth. So in one point, right, in one part of the Hydra, we see that some cells that are there, they will rapidly start to grow, right? They will rapidly start to grow outside the body. Yes? So we see that they are rapidly growing outside the body, which is why we call this as a bud, right? We call this as an outgrowth, or we will call this as a bud. Now, because it is growing outside, so this results in the formation of something called as a bud. Now, this bud that is there will undergo various changes. So slowly the body will start to get specialized, right? So we see that the body will start to get specialized. It will get mature. We see that the tentacles will form. Yes. And eventually the bud will detach from the body. So we see that at one point it will get cut and it will detach from the parent body. And if you see this new individual, it is identical, but it is also smaller, right? It is smaller than your parent organism. And here we see that in this particular case, right? In this particular case, what do we see? The parent still exists, right? The parent has not split. The parent has not vanished. The parent still exists, and we see that the smaller one is still there. Yes? So here in this case, during bud formation, there is an outgrowth. Okay. Bhavna, Roastify, whoever you are, and many others who are having random conversations in class. Janvi also. You can leave the class right now, or you pay attention in my class. I am a lenient teacher, but that does not mean that you take advantage of the class, right? You pay attention, or if today you don't feel like studying, it's okay. But don't disturb the others, right? That is my sincere request for all of you. Okay, very good. Ma'am, what happens while Hydra dies? Hydra dies while reproduction. That's a very interesting question, right? So as you see, during reproduction, I don't know, maybe it may not continue to reproduce, but it, if it normally does its reproduction, the bud will be formed. Okay? Yes. Okay. Are we all clear? Quickly take a screenshot. Not really, right? Not really. Sometimes it is microscopic. It is not for class 6, this is for class 8. Yes, it is found, it's an aquatic organism, right? It is an aquatic organism. It is not a plant. It is an animal, not a plant. I think sometimes because we normally give green color to it, we think it's plant, but it is animal only. Cnidaria, your jellyfish family. Hello Sumaya, happy birthday. It was somebody else's birthday also. I missed your name, but happy birthday to you as well. ठीक है. Similarly, we observe a process in yeast, where in yeast also, this is single cell, right? This is a single-celled organism. There is an outgrowth in this case, and eventually the bud can get detached, or it will end up forming a chain of buds. So in this case, right, an outgrowth or a bud from the body of the parent is what matures into a new individual, and we call this as budding in yeast. See, this practical dikhao is the most outdated comment that I've ever seen. You can stop saying this, right? Just stop. Ma'am Hydra, yes, very good. Very good Anushka, very, very good. Okay? Quick question in the meanwhile. Now, a paramecium, read the question. A paramecium reproduces by dividing itself into two daughter cells. This process is called as dash. Budding, regeneration, binary fission, or vegetative propagation. What is the answer? you have a different name given to you, which is paramecium. And it is undergoing a process of division where it is only splitting and giving rise to two daughter cells. So what would the answer be? I know my voice sounds karkar, right? Very good, all of you, very good. Answer here is binary fission. So quickly to recall whatever we have learnt. So I'm going to summarize right now. Now in asexual reproduction, we saw that there was only one parent which was involved. We saw that they produce no gametes or no specialized cells, and we see that offspring is identical, right? Offspring is identical. Now in this case, we see that there are three kinds. We saw or we learnt about binary fission, we learnt about multiple fission, and now we learnt about budding, right? So in binary fission, so let me quickly write this down. So in binary fission, what did we observe? We saw that there was one parent organism which will undergo changes within its body. It will split, right, and give rise to two daughter cells, right? And we saw that it will undergo various changes within the body. While in some cases during multiple fission, yes, during multiple fission, what did we observe? We saw that there was one parent, right, and it gave rise to multiple daughter cells, right? And eventually they were all enclosed within a cyst or a protective covering. So when it ruptures, we saw that there would be multiple offsprings that are here. Now in this case, in binary fission, we saw that bacteria, amoeba, right, are all examples. Multiple fission may we saw that Plasmodium was an example of the same. Now here in budding, what did we observe? In budding, we saw that there was an outgrowth. Yes, so in budding, we saw that there is a outgrowth from parent cell, right? So we see that there is an outgrowth from the parent cell, and this bud will undergo various changes, it will mature, and this is what will form a new individual. So in this case, what did we see? Hydra, and we also saw that yeast are examples of the same. Are we all clear now? Are we clear? Yes or no? Are we clear? I will do a quiz, don't worry. Cool. We are all with this. You are all with me. In the meanwhile, do not forget to hit the like button on this video. See if you've enjoyed this class, right? If you've enjoyed this class, don't forget to hit the like button on this video. Today, I forgot to make a like leader as well. But most importantly, if you are learning the concept, understand this very clearly. This concept is there even in 10th standard. And that time, instead of crying and telling ma'am in 8th standard, I wish I studied better, it is always best to study and learn the concept thoroughly. Okay, one question I'd like to take. Ma'am, if amoeba can't undergo, see, amoeba will normally do binary fission, but Plasmodium may we see multiple fission. Yes? Okay, ma'am, this is easy. Awesome. Amrit, I hope I've answered your question. Now, this is very interesting for all of you, okay? I'll give you timetable towards the end. How many of you have seen lizards, chipkali at home? How many of us would have seen chipkali at home? They'll normally be climbing on top. But in this chipkali, how many of you have noticed that sometimes tail is missing? The tail is not there. There is a chipkali which is gone. I mean, it's there, but no tail. But does not mean that the chipkali is died. Oh, my tail is not there, I can't live, oh, done. No, chipkali is still surviving. But if you've noticed, after some time, no, this tail would have come back. How many of you have noticed that? If the tail has gotten cut or damaged, we see that the tail comes back, right? The whole thing comes back. Now the reason is because of a process called as regeneration. Now this regeneration that is there is when a part of the body is regenerated or it is brought back, right? So we see that it is regenerated, and for this we see that there are some specialized, certain specialized cells that help me achieve or help such organisms achieve it. Now similarly, if you see the liver, which is a very important organ of our body, has the ability to regenerate. Starfishes that are there, right? Starfishes that are there, if they lose a particular part of their body, if they lose a part of their limbs or something, we see that they will be able to regenerate its part. But in some cases, in some extreme cases, this is also a way in which they reproduce, right? Now, there is an organism called as planaria. Now, planaria comes under the category of flatworms. Their body is flat, right? So, planaria, liver fluke, they all come under the category of flatworms because their body is flattened top to bottom. Now, what happens in planaria is sometimes during some unfavorable conditions, right? Let's assume that planaria is in a situation where its body has gotten sliced into pieces. Okay, it has gotten sliced into pieces, left, right, center. Now it has not voluntarily decided that it will slice it in this manner, but due to some unfavorable reasons, its body has gotten sliced up. Now in this case, each part of the planaria's body will give rise to a new organism, right? So when from a fully adult organism or from a fully differentiated organism, when a new individual will come from where? From the cut parts of the body, we call this process as regeneration. Now in extreme cases, right, we see that it helps in reproduction. But will normally, right, will the planaria want to chop up its body, or will a fully differentiated organism, fully adult organism want to cut itself up so that it can grow more of itself? No, it will not do that normally, which is why regeneration is not something which is ideal. It's not something that they opt for normal kind of reproduction. But this is only in some unfavorable cases where they have lost certain parts, they regenerate it. So you should not really consider it as a mode of reproduction. It is not a mode of reproduction. While in some cases like Spirogyra, some algae are there where what they'll do, they will break itself into fragments, and then each piece, right, will give rise to a new organism. But this is in very simple organisms, okay? Sorry about that. So are we all clear? Ma'am, only one bud is formed in budding. Yes, and that could give rise to a chain of buds later, okay? Ma'am, what is the difference between binary fission and fragmentation? See, in binary fission, what happens? In binary fission, the parent will undergo changes and both will give rise to new organisms. In fragmentation, what will happen? We see that first of all, we observe fragmentation in Spirogyra, right? So first it will break itself into fragments. Then each fragment will become into a new organism, okay? So that is the case. They are totally different. Ma'am, an organism which can do both budding and regeneration, it is Hydra. Are we clear? Ma'am, they are the same. They are not exactly the same. See, fragmentation may they are breaking into pieces. Budding may what is happening? Budding may the parent is not gotten cut or anything. But we see that there is a outgrowth that is there, right? So we see that there is a outgrowth. So here's a quick question. Budding in Hydra is a form of dash. Apoptosis, sexual reproduction, asexual reproduction, or is it none of the above? What is the answer? I'll summarize the whole thing once again, don't worry. Easy peasy. Answer is option C, asexual reproduction, right? Because in budding in Hydra includes only one parent. So very quickly, moving on, this is a quick difference. So many of you who are confused with budding and regeneration, this question is for all of you. What is the difference between budding and regeneration? Budding mein there is a small outgrowth, right? And this outgrowth is what we call as a bud, which will detach from the parent on maturation or when it becomes mature. While in regeneration, the organism, if it's got some part of the body is cut, or if some part of the body is destroyed, then it will regrow the lost part. Now, this is a common method of asexual reproduction. This is seen in planaria. Can you all take a screenshot? Jaldi se. Take a screenshot. Shall I move on? Apoptosis is cell death. Cell death is called as apoptosis. Ma'am, organism which can reproduce both by budding and regeneration. See, both budding and regeneration. First of all, learn that regeneration is not a method of reproduction per se. But an organism which has the ability to regenerate and do budding, it is Hydra. Are we clear? Amrit. Okay, 1 minute. Amrit has a good question. Ma'am, amoeba undergoes multiple fission under severe condition. Yes, but see, multiple fission is when, see what happens is that normally, right, when organisms are under threat. Now we are not able to fathom what threat it is, because for us we'll be like, array, that is normal, you just need to do this. Now our body is pretty advanced. But for a very simplified organism, what happens? We see that any condition which is not favorable, they don't know when they can reproduce next, right? So they don't know if they can reproduce anytime soon. So for such an extreme case, they will prepare multiple copies and keep it ready. So that tomorrow, right, if at all, let's say the remaining population of my amoeba gets affected and I'm the only one left, they would have made those multiple copies. That is why, right? That is why we see that multiple fission exists. Okay? Next question. Dash refers to the process in which plants or animals replace lost or damaged parts by growing dash. So can you tell me which are the two answers? Arush, class 10th had to get cancelled because of internet issue. There was some, ma'am, budding is example. No, Hydra is an example of budding, not vice versa. Very good. Regeneration is a process that refers to the process in which plants or animals replace lost or damaged parts by growing them back. So quickly to wind up, today we started learning about reproduction. What is reproduction? Why reproduction is important? We learned about the two modes, sexual and asexual. Remember, they will ask you a question on differentiate between the two. 3-mark question will come for the same. Then we learnt about different modes of asexual reproduction, where we covered fission, budding and regeneration. So everybody take a quick screenshot and give me a thumbs up and I will get back. Okay. So with this everybody, we are done. So this is your homework question for today, where in the comments of this video, you need to tell me what is the difference between binary and multiple fission. Now I know many of you have a lot of doubts. So whatever doubts are there, let me know in the comments of this video. And most importantly, if you enjoyed today's class, do not forget to let me know in the comments as well. Now very quickly, right? Notes will be uploaded. I will share the notes. Don't worry. Now, remember this, for class 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, right? Every day for 6th grade, you will have classes at 6 p.m. For 7th grade, you will have classes at 7 p.m. For 8th grade, you will have class at 8 p.m. Now, normally, biology classes for grade 6 happens when? It happens on Wednesday. For class 7, it happens on Tuesday. And for class 8, it happens on Thursdays. Also, students, quick heads up. Next week, due to some accommodation being made for your seniors, I will be taking class on Friday, but that's only for next week, not every week, right? Physics happens on Fridays, but for next week alone, we have swapped it. So next week, you will have physics on Thursday and biology on Friday, right? So next week, right, that means on 17th of November, I will be covering the remaining part of the chapter, which is going to be sexual reproduction in human beings. And we will also be learning about oviparous, viviparous, metamorphosis. We will be doing all those topics next week. So be there next week on Friday, 8 p.m., right? So, of course, with this, I will be signing off. Thank you so much, right, for staying with me till the very end. I will see you all very, very soon. Doubts in the comments of this video. So, thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Lots of love. I'll see you all soon. But up until then, take care and good night.